Hey everybody, welcome back to Recruiters in the Microphone, the video series. So I'm Pete Cochran, got Israel Swanson with us as well, and then of course our good friend Matt Chang. How you doing, Matt?
Hey, good to see you guys. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely. Yeah, anytime. But yeah, I was actually just thinking about it. You and I were texting about this, Matt, a couple weeks ago with really the whole We Robot conference and the announcements that Elon had. I just immediately thought of, man, I want to get Matt's take on this because this seemed pretty awesome. What's about to happen? So just wanted to kind of, I'm assuming you watched it. Is that safe to assume?
Oh yeah, I got the X or Twitter takes, and then I
Mhm.
also streamed part of it.
Did
Yeah,
you? Yeah.
yeah.
So like, what was your first impression? Like walking away from it?
Well, yeah. Just so we're clear, We Robot was the new product announcement from Tesla,
Yes.
and it was very mysterious. They kind of dangled out invitations. I didn't get one, which I was a little bit offended by. No, I'm just kidding. But um, they had it in California, yeah, about 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
And the main point of the product announcement and the branding of We Robot was that Tesla is clearly making a pivot now to being a robotics and AI company instead of just a car company. And so they had, yeah, several product announcements. They had their new Robo Van, which looks sweet. My
It
wife
does.
immediately said that should be our corporate office, because we just need a Robo Van, fit out the inside with like half office, half seating, and convert that to the corporate headquarters. So I love that idea. They had their Robo Taxi, which was like a two-seater concept
Yep.
with a big trunk. And so that is a self-driving, no driver taxi as a service. And then, competing with Waymo mainly. And then they had their humanoid on display. And so I think between the three of those, I think it was personally very effective. Elon's highly controversial, so he drives as many negative takes as positive takes. But I
Would
just think
agree.
the activity it generated was the effect. That was the marketing impact.
Right.
I thought he went right to cost. One of the things he talked about was the cost of the products,
Mm-hmm.
where sometimes you see new tech and you say, okay, well, will I ever be able to afford this? He came out and said the humanoid will be 30 grand and under,
Yep.
and then the robo taxi will be 30 grand and under.
Right.
So I thought between those two announcements, that's provocative, and that moves the industry. I talked to several, basically upper middle class or wealthy families about it, and they all said, "Oh, we're getting that robot as soon as it's out." Right? Because I think
Really?
lining it up with the cost of domestic help, whether it be laundry or some babysitting duties or whatever it's supposed to do, cleaning, you can just offset the costs right
Mhm.
away with things you're already paying for.
True. True. When is the release of that? I can't remember when it actually said it will
Yeah,
be.
that's the part I wouldn't take stock in any of the release dates.
Very true.
You guys have seen it. I'm an early adopter of Cybertruck, and from the
I
minute I hit
have.
the button to buy until it showed up at my house was 4.5 years. So there's going to be a yeah, right.
I did not realize you were waiting that long.
I didn't
Matt.
realize that
forgot
either.
I
Right?
was waiting, Israel. Yeah, I was waiting so long I forgot that I was waiting, because it kind of left my mind. Between that time, we had COVID and an election,
Yeah.
and all kind of stuff, and I just forgot about it.
Then it
Until
just
they told
shows
me
up.
it's my turn. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think I wouldn't take stock in the time.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
if you follow all of Elon's ventures, Neuralink, SpaceX, Tesla, and some of the stuff he's got in the hopper, it takes longer than I think maybe he optimistically thinks it will,
Mhm.
and he probably knows that. But
Right.
he's trying to cast an earlier vision and get people excited about it. So I wouldn't bank on the humanoid being ready for any of us to buy in the next 5 years. I think
Right.
you're
Okay.
more than 5 years out on that.
Mhm.
I think the robo taxi's got a lot more promise. Tesla self driving is really far along.
Right.
And what's provocative about the price point of 3K is the Waymo vehicle is order of magnitude 300K. So he's coming
Whoa.
right out.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, that's
Holy
if
crap.
you know that math, then I think that's why he said 30,000 is because it's 1/10 of the Waymo cost. So how much quicker does he proliferate at 1/10 the cost?
Hmm.
He's got the charging network. They've already got all the AI basis for self-driving from their regular cars. It's not a big jump for him
Right.
to get
It's
this
not a
product
leap.
out. Yeah. So I think that's really exciting. Now, the regulatory burden on robotaxis is crazy. So you guys probably have read about how companies like Cruise and Waymo and Uber have had self-driving permits given by the regulators and then taken away at times. Mm-hmm. They've been put in the penalty box during safety review. So I do think that's an area that is also going to take a long time because we have to get federal policy lined up and then state policy to say, when is it okay to do it? What are the rules of the road? So that's going to take a while. I'd say the robotaxi for you to buy one is probably like 10 years out.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So
yeah.
I've got a question for you, Matt. And with everything that you've been doing in the AV space, and then all of a sudden this huge thing comes out where, unless you are following Elon very closely at every move, I would say a lot of the world didn't even know about this big reveal, right? Unless you're in the nerd hive following him. With this big reveal and then him talking and you also saying, like, let's not put a timeline on it, we can speculate. But with all the stuff that you've been doing and are doing now in that same space, would you say that your timelines from the world being more open-minded to adopting this these autonomous vehicles and everything that you're doing, you think the bureaucracy of the government and all the stuff is going to loosen a little bit? And obviously regulations need to happen and you need to make sure that your vehicles do what you say they're going to do in a safe manner. But do you think as a whole, because of this, the timeline on just everybody having better feelings about it is going to move a lot faster?
Yeah, I think you're right that. So I guess I'm in the nerd hive, if that's what you call the space behind me right now. I like that phrase. Yeah, I was looking forward to it. Even I wasn't sure what the announcement was before it came out, and then when I watched it, I felt like it delivered. I thought it was enough substance to justify the hype. And that's the We Robot event for Tesla. But in terms of, you kind of asked two different questions. One is, how quickly will people get okay with it? They have to become aware of it and get comfortable with it. And the second is, what's the impact of regulatory? And is that going at the right pace, or maybe it's slowing things down a little bit? So I'd say for awareness, one thing happened right after We Robot that nobody saw coming, which is he caught that Starship rocket booster with the chopsticks. Everyone in the world saw that rocket come down and land on target and get caught with a pair of chopsticks. And it's like a 200-foot tall rocket booster. It's like 20 stories tall.
Yeah, it's taller than the Statue of Liberty. And it was crazy.
We have these defining moments in industries. Mm-hmm. And I think that SpaceX accomplishment, although it's not necessarily Tesla, it's still the same guy and the same vision, right? Elon Musk. I think that is a definitive moment that says anything this guy wants to do, he can do. And, if you think about the AI space, you guys weren't even podcasting about AI before 2021, right? But as soon as ChatGPT dropped, every CEO in the nation had to talk about AI. They're like, how am I going to use AI in my business? And
within days.
The same people asking that, you'd say, well, show me your phone. Do you have the ChatGPT app downloaded? Well, no, not me. And it's like, all right, well, I don't think it's coming that fast if you are asking the question, but you haven't adopted it, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
ChatGPT was kind of that flash of people became aware of AI outside of just sci-fi movies. And then this rocket catch was the same thing. It's like there are new frontiers available. And I do think the space frontier is important because if we're looking beyond, then it makes the stuff that's happening here on our own city streets a little bit more mundane and maybe a little bit easier to comprehend. So I think in terms of user adoption, I think we're kind of already into that critical swing. I'm using self-driving probably 10 times a week right now. My kids request it because it's a button. They can see my thumb hit the button in the Cybertruck. So they'll go, Dad, hit the button. That's what they mean. And they love it when the car drives itself, right?
And so, correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, when we first interviewed you and you introduced us to your Cybertruck, at that point, self-driving wasn't in your Cybertruck, correct?
That's right. It turned on like 3 weeks ago from today.
Okay. Yeah. So
it just turned on, and then the adoption and the family dynamic with children, my spouse, guests in the car was like a 2 week. I mean, 2 days. It took like 2 days to figure out, the kind of how to use it and the do's and don'ts. You can't text and self-drive in a Tesla. It immediately shuts off once you start texting, which was a good lesson for me to learn. Not that I did it, outside of a parking lot.
Yeah.
But then, okay, so I can't be distracted. I have to be ready to take over. And then to inform that experience, I think I told you guys I did 2 things. I got a self-driving Tesla and I took it from Jacksonville to Tampa.
I remember that story. Yeah, with your
no
dad,
interactions.
right?
Yep. No interactions the whole time, except when I wanted to, I didn't tell it to go to Panda Express. And then I decided I got to go to Panda Express. I might have hijacked the self-driving, but in terms of driving safety and navigation, no interactions. And then the other thing that I think was really useful for my own experience was I did take a dedicated trip to Phoenix and just wear off the wheels on Waymos. And I did these crazy 5-stop itineraries in a Waymo to see how it would react under complex requests. And so I came into it already an expert in machine autonomy. That's what I do in my engineering company every day. But then I was getting to this consumer side road application experience. And I tell you what, now that it's in the family, I just use it every day. And I talked to a gentleman that lives in a neighboring county to Jacksonville who has a pretty tough commute on 5 every day. Mm-hmm. And he bought it because of his morning commute. It's just more relaxing for him if he just hops in the car and tells it to go to work. And he does it every single day going to work downtown Jacksonville and back.
Wow.
So, I think the consumer side will come along fairly quickly. I think it'll mirror kind of that smartphone curve. When did iPhone get popular? I would argue it was kind of iPhone 4 was about when it started to catch on mainstream, and it wasn't a toy or a gimmick. It started to be, I'll plan my next phone purchase around iPhone. It was about iPhone 4. Mm-hmm. So I think, we need to get to Gen 4 here, and you'll see that same user adoption. Now, the piece on regulatory, I tell you what, this is make or break. Right, the regulators can strangle this, and they can let another country take over. China is already demonstrating excellence in autonomous navigation of vehicles, buses, all kinds of things. And so, if our regulators don't want it to happen, they can absolutely choke it out. On the flip side, they want to be collaborative and work with industry and promote, safety, as you said, Israel. Then it can happen super fast. So I do think as a nation, we kind of have to pick our national identity in terms of innovation. And the good thing is you're having it on a multi-pronged approach. So crypto is having this conversation. Right. Is the federal government here to help or hurt? Or just stay out of the way, right?
Right.
Different fuel system technologies like hydrogen, they're having the same conversation right now. National defense and innovation, healthcare and innovation. So this is just another one. And I think this is where the presidential elections matter. So the next probably 2 or 3 presidents that we elect will really set the course of, are we liberating innovation or are we strangling it?
Gotcha. In regards to the from a federal standpoint, so you do have, Tesla has their autonomous programming, and then I know GM has theirs. And do you think that there's going to be a time that it makes more sense that one to rule them all, where it's going to be the standard because of, instead of everybody recreating the wheel from a GPS standpoint and how they know to do it, even though it has nothing, I know it's all cameras and stuff like that, but in regards to the maps, whether it's a Google map or do you think there is going to consolidate to where all autonomous ends up? It's like, oh, well, this is kind of the platform that you should use and then there's going to be a monopoly on, this is the GPS system that works best with autonomous vehicles. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Or not really?
Yeah, I think, to reframe it a little bit, there's this driverless brain that is making decisions, and those are value-based decisions. So I've been in this autonomous space for almost 10 years now. So in the early days, they had this quandary. They called it the trolley dilemma. So, and the trolley dilemma was, imagine that there's a trolley headed down a pair of train tracks, and there's a switch. And sitting at the end of the train tracks is an old lady. And then sitting on the other switch, if you switch and divert the trolley, there's a family car with 5 people. And then you're standing at the switch. Which way do you divert the trolley? That was the ethical dilemma in this instance where a vehicle could be put in a position where it has to choose the lesser of two evils.
Is the lady really into cats?
Do
we know what political party she aligns with? Like, these are certain things that I would like to know in regards to choosing, because it wouldn't necessarily be a very moral dilemma for me at all.
If you were the AI driver, somebody's already dead because we don't have time to sit here and talk. That's the issue, is that we have to make a decision in the blink of an eye. But we need to compute and kind of clear set rules to do that. Well, the best response I ever heard to it was Mercedes came out with an answer that said, we will always choose to protect the driver. Okay, well, we didn't talk about who's in the trolley and what might be the worst case for the trolley, right? And so I thought that was very clarifying, which is, if you buy a Mercedes and it's their technology and over time it becomes autonomous, they will always protect the driver. From the lesser of, that's the lesser of two evils, is what protects the driver. It's not their job to care about who happens to be on the tracks, because that might not be in their control. So I think the ethics in AI and autonomous driving are very far from being settled.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I do think overall the self-driving is more aware than human drivers, because we all have blind spots. That's why we have so many mirrors in the cars where you're kind of constantly checking our surroundings when we have to make a decision. These vehicles have probably 8 camera angles, whether you're in Waymo or Tesla. It's got a 360 basically around the car. They see things that we don't see. And so I do think they're overall making better decisions. I won't say the driving quality is better than a human driver yet, but I think the decision-making and awareness is better. So right now there's kind of 3 companies that are leading it, in my opinion. So there's Waymo, who has this super high-end self-driving experiment going, funded by Google, right? And if you ride in a Waymo, it's undeniably high quality. It's very exciting. But it may be permanently unaffordable. We don't know. They have not found a way to get the cost down to a point where it can be scaled out across the country without corporate subsidy. You have Mobileye, which is a Israeli company, and that's what's on most of the production vehicles. So most, GM-style cars are going to use Mobileye, and that's that kind of adaptive cruise control, what they call level 3 adaptive cruise control. And then you have Tesla. So between those 3 companies, I think you're always going to have multiple options.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Other automakers aren't going to want to buy Tesla kit and put it on their car, and I'm not sure Tesla would offer it to them.
Right.
Google, because of their superior finances and capabilities, may continue to exist for a long time with this super high-end product, but they may struggle to reach affordability. And then Mobileye is clearly dominant. They're on multiple different types of OEMs for cars. So I think you're always going to have several options, but it's going to end up looking like your cell phone plan, right? It's like you got AT&T and Verizon, and then a couple other cheap ones, or your cable company. It can feel like you don't have a lot of choices, and so it's not necessarily winner take all, but it's a few take all type of industry for sure.
So do you think?
I feel like I've been. Go ahead, Pete.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I feel like I'm asking all the questions, and I was going to give Pete a chance.
Oh, no. Yeah. Go ahead.
Sidestep in a question that I did ask Andrew last week after the whole Elon, and this is a question off of it's more about the rocket launch. Did you find it a little surprising, because Pete and I did, that there wasn't a bigger celebration about the accomplishment that just took place?
So, no, I didn't. And I think maybe in terms of celebration, what you might be looking for is like that the president of the United States comes out and remarks on American progress and American industry, or the new frontier. So for those that missed it, go watch the highlights. Starship going up and coming back down and being autonomously landed back in the same place it launched from. That basically means we're going to Mars, right? Now, are we going to Mars next year? No. But it basically means that was the next technological hurdle to say, is mankind going to Mars? We've been to the moon. We're in space all the time. When are we going to Mars? The answer is the clock starts now. Someday we're going to Mars. And I tell my kids that. My kids are young. I tell them all the time that if you want to, you can go to the moon or Mars. So I think that's completely going to be within our lifetimes, and probably sooner than later in our lifetimes. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't think it was uncelebrated. I think certain people, due to politics mainly, probably didn't talk about it. right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
Elon Musk specifically has switched parties and gone all in with Republicans. There's currently a Democrat administration. Did that partisan divide cause them to ignore it? Possibly. But I know the text threads that I'm in, and all of my family text chats and friend text chats, everybody's talking about it. I mean, both of you saw it. I saw it.
Oh yeah.
If you care about cool stuff in general, you saw it. And I would love to look at the stats on the X platform, at how many times people viewed this. It's got to be billions. My understanding was 2 days after it was successfully re-landed, that the Starship launch and landing had like 3 billion views around the planet.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Probably most of that was guys like me watching it 6 times in a row.
I was about to say, is everyone on this call just watching it over and over and over? Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I think it's pretty well known. And what you also saw was, after the Starship catch, the Democrat governor of California came out and said, I'm on the side of Elon, because there's some regulatory fighting in California about chasing SpaceX away from California due to partisan reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And then Gavin Newsom, probably not always known for being bipartisan, he came out and said, I'm with SpaceX.
Right.
And if I'm the governor of California, which is a cradle of innovation, how do you run off the company that can get us to Mars, right? It wouldn't make sense.
Right.
I thought that showed that success can conquer partisanship, for sure.
Yeah, very true. Andrew actually talked about it in a very similar way than we are today, but also just that this was a first step, to get to Mars, like you said, Matt, but also he described it to the interstate highway. Like, now we can go back, if we can get things up there, faster, more efficient, and more frequent, which, to him was like it's all about infrastructure, right? So what Elon
if
did.
Your audience missed it, the gentleman you're referring to, Andrew Rush, is building he's a multi-time space entrepreneur, but he's building a power plants in space company right now, which is just like, that's why he had to go up before me, right? Like, big brains.
Yeah. He was featured on this, and we're actually getting ready to release the episode just like this in chunks, and see what he had to say. But it's absolutely phenomenal what he's doing, and very similar to what you're even doing. Because of what we talked about last time around autonomous vehicles in public transit, I kind of walked away from that thing, the Tesla announcement, that I think that public transit autonomous vehicles are going to become more common. Like, to your point about, skirting around regulation. But I mean, based on our last conversation, thinking about what we did and what you did with JTA, do you think that that's going to become more of a staple in more cities and more locations? Yeah,
I do. And so I do think autonomous vehicles will become more prevalent in public transit overall.
Yes.
We already have a lot of automated vehicles. So, we have an automated monorail here with no driver in Jacksonville. If you go to Atlanta and you take the plane train, or you take their rental car train, those are both non-operated vehicles that operate on an automation system. So you can find these examples everywhere. I think addressing the bus specifically, the bus was optimized around one driver. What's the most number of passengers you can put around one driver? Because the most expensive part of a bus system is the driver. And so that's why they're designed the way they are. And in some cities, they're packed, right? I took a bus in Chicago recently, another one in New York City, and it was pretty a decent amount of people on the bus.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
In cities like ours, I mean, these things sit very empty, and the vehicle doesn't need to be so big. So I think what you're going to see is the same thing that we're watching the ports grapple with right now, which is, should we have automation at ports? The first answer is yes.
Yeah.
Should we disenfranchise the labor force and the unions? No. We have to find a way to do it that empowers workforce and gives them a ladder up in their career, a ladder up in compensation, and then at the same time gets the efficiencies of automation, right? And that should be everything in society. But I think when you watch this move into the public sector, and that RoboVan, you probably caught it. I mean, a 22-seater or whatever it was, it looks an awfully lot like a transit vehicle.
Right.
I think that starts to bring us to this conversation point of, like, how are we empowering the workforce? So we have a certain amount of bus operators in the country. Mm-hmm. It is one of those positions that's hard to staff. it's really hard to recruit, train, and retain bus operators for public transit. They probably, in my opinion, don't get paid enough, right? So if it's hard to recruit and they don't get paid enough, that means we can use technology to make the overall field better. Let's give a bus operator more tech to work with. Let's give them more job training, and let's pay them more. And you would see me answer that for just about anything, whether it was teaching or nursing or anything where you have this kind of chronic low wage condition.
Right.
And let's give them more technology. Let's ask them to do more now that they have the technology, and then let's pay them more. So I don't know exactly what it'll shake out like. I don't think you're ever going to replace that 40-foot bus. I think that's a staple.
They'll still be there
forever. But what I do think is that some of the routes that don't need to be operated by that mostly empty 40-foot bus, those could easily just be an autonomous shuttle.
Right.
Why not?
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, I can definitely see that that's what JTA is even doing here, right? I mean, it's in Brooklyn, downtown, and so it's in mainly areas, which is what's for what I can remember, that's actually what they're talking about. Is that still the case, Matt?
Yeah, I think they're going to go with a similar. It's going to look very similar to what you saw from Tesla.
Yeah, it almost looked like identical.
That's referring for the audience. That's Jacksonville, Florida, has a already funded autonomous mass transit project that's designed to be an urban circulator, and they're building their first prototype vehicles right now. I think those vehicles, if I had to predict, are going to be around 14 to 15 seaters. Somewhere in that capacity. Or in terms of total occupancy, some people may be standing, but I think that's a good spot to start experimenting with is more than 12 and less than 20. Let's kind of figure out what the sweet spot is. Mm-hmm. And the beauty of that technology, as a reminder, is when you need extra capacity, you can just daisy chain the vehicles together. And that functionality is called a platoon. So they can just drive in like a virtual train, 2, 3, 4 at a time. And so we have the issue that we grapple with in Jacksonville, which is we have an NFL team. So on game day, that's obviously our peak throughput. We got to move people to the stadium and get them away in slugs. Tuesday afternoon at 2 p.m., it could be pretty light traffic, right? So we don't need all that capacity out there.
Right.
So that's where I hope to see this technology beat conventional stuff like a light rail or a train system.
Right.
And the problem with those is once you put them in, you're never moving it, and they're so expensive. The cities that take those on end up with huge operating costs and a lot of debt. So I think we do kind of as a country deserve something that's a little more easily deployable, especially to mid-tier and small cities, something that they could just adopt and it's very flexible. They can reprogram it around the future of the city instead of how they designed it 10 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's just going to be a fascinating time for the next 2 to 5 to 10 years, like we talked about. And I think that we're, based on what everything happened a couple of weeks ago to now to the conversation being, it's pretty incredible. And I'm glad to share it with you again, have this conversation with you again, Matt. But
one thing, Pete, if you got time for it, I want to call your attention to was the same day as the We Robot from Tesla. Then the defense company Anduril did their new product announcement. And to me, that was just as exciting as the Tesla announcement. Because one of the questions I've been wondering about with the technology we're using in the military is it equipped for tomorrow? And if you go back and watch that, they had some autonomously navigated drones that could target vehicles in the war theater. And what I was concerned about is we watched some of these conflicts open up overseas, like Ukraine and Russia, or the things that are happening in the Middle East around Israel right now. Some of the warfare there seems like it's being fought on a level that we've never participated in the U.S., and we may not be ready for. So I thought that product announcement from Anduril was equally as exciting because it showcased that we actually have domestic capabilities to do the same things we're seeing happen overseas.
Yeah, for all those that did miss it, can you summarize what that announcement was, Matt?
Yeah, basically, so Anduril is this startup company. They have big Pentagon contracts. And they do things like hypersonics. And one of their latest product announcements was they had a suitcase carry drone that could carry several different armaments from, I think it was like a EMP pulse type deployment, so it could disable electronics, or conventional ballistics where it could blow something up. And what it was able to do is be carried in an OtterBox case by our soldiers, the warfighters. So it could be hauled into the battlefield. It can be deployed remotely. And then it can be easily controlled with very little operator training. You don't have to have a drone operator, no FAA license. You can do this from an iPad. And then you can use it to autonomously select a target. So you have to confirm the target. It's not like it's picking what it may be killing. But the demonstration they did for this product launch was actually drug mules. And so it looked like you had these drug mules going through a Rocky Mountain terrain that were either smuggling something illicit and that they'd been targeted. Once the drone is given its target, it basically takes care of the rest. And it was convincing.
Wow.
And it did look like a step function above what I've seen in the Ukraine-Russia conflict, which means that, hey, if we do buy enough of these and our government is equipped with them, then we're in the future of warfare. Because I think this whole autonomous space has negative downsides when it comes to military conflict. And anybody fighting the old style versus somebody with new modern technology, remote control drones or autonomous drones, it's not going to be a fair fight. We need a way to deal with that.
Yeah, you've lost before it even started.
Yeah, so Elon was basically covering the consumer side, and they were covering the defense side, and I thought it was a strong pairing, and for some reason they picked the same day to do their announcements.
That's a heck of a Thursday right there.
Yeah, it was. It was a big day in the nerd hive, Israel.
And in our nerd hive, we
that's
had a great
trademarked,
day.
by the way, Matt. So
yeah,
I mean, if you continue to use it,
yeah.
I'll buy you lunch every time I say it.
Yeah, okay.
We'll take it. No, this is awesome. Well, always great to see you, Matt. And I really appreciate your time and get some insights on this stuff. And I'm super pumped and excited about what's next.
Yeah, and if you've got a second, I do have a plug.
Of course, man.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the plug is that we are working on a special project in Jacksonville. The two of you may or may not be involved, which is that we're going to be merging a lot of smaller conferences into a larger conference next year. So what the public can expect is Jack's TechFest, which will happen late next summer, is going to be bigger, more organized, and better than it has been before. We had the first demo this past August, and I thought it was a huge success. We had across all the events, several thousand attendees, about 7 days. So you can expect the same format, multi-day, multi-venue, but it should be just much, much larger, better produced, and with really a high-end experience for all the attendees.
Yeah, I love the plug, man.
With that being a plug for things to come, and since you live in the Nerd Hive primarily a lot more than other people, is there anything to any of the listeners that they might not know is about to, just like last Thursday, is there something that we should be keeping our ears peeled and eyes opened for in the next, let's say by the end of the year? Is there going to be a big surprise pre-2025 in your space, in the robotics space, in all the spaces?
And the Nerd Hive.
Well, I don't know if it could be as big as We Robot or Catching the Rocket, but what I can say is that for people that want to see what I spend most of my day doing, which is actually engineering robotic and autonomous systems, then we do until about the middle of November. We have a autonomous and cobotic demonstration at Jacksonville University going on right now. That is a preview to what the future of robot implementation in the workforce is going to look like. And so currently we've been running some government groups, student groups through there, but folks can just go check it out on our LinkedIn or our website. And we're having, I think, probably 2 organized tours per week right now. So if anybody wants kind of a sneak peek, the next couple of years are going to be busy for us. Engineering is one of those businesses where you start and you have to go do some designs before you get budgeting and before you go build it. And if what we're doing on the engineering table right now is an indicator, the next several years are going to go really fast in robot implementation in the workforce. And I think it's a good thing for our labor market. One of the things we do is we model in what the pay raise is to go to a robotic technician from a manual laborer. So that goes into the customer's business case. But I think that part's going to be pretty exciting. And so if you want to see it before you'll see it on TV or YouTube or something, then get over to JU in the next month and a half, and we'll let you play with the robots. I tell the students
I would love to do that.
I tell them you can break them. I just mean with programming, not with like a hammer. But in terms of if you can find a bug in the system we've designed, please go find it. That would save me money when we install them.
Yeah, we'll definitely check that out. So that's on your website that we can find out more information, or is that on JU?
Our
or,
website and
yeah.
our LinkedIn both have announcements of
Okay.
that. And I can send you guys a link to share with your listeners if they want to click on
Yeah,
that. and
please.
sign
Yeah,
up.
please.
That'd be great, Matt.
Send the
Thanks.
link and
Yep.
then we'll share it out.
Awesome.
No, that's awesome. I'll also tell my daughter who goes to school there, as you know, Matt. So yeah, perfect.
That's right. Tell her to get to work. We'll put her to work.
Fins up.
Internship applications are open.
Oh, I
Awesome.
will.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thank you, gentlemen. This has been awesome, as always. Can't wait to see you. And again, and then I can't wait to start figuring more about Jacksonville TechFest. I can't wait to start helping out. So we're
That's
both
right.
excited about that.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you having
Thanks,
me.
guys.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, buddy.
See ya.
Have a good one. Bye.